When Susan told me she wanted a divorce, it felt like the world shifted beneath my feet. I was shocked but not entirely blindsided. After nearly 18 years of marriage, I'd noticed she'd been increasingly confiding in her friend Rachel, who had a track record of 4 divorces and styled herself as a marriage expert. "Mark, I'm not happy. I want a divorce," Susan said coldly. "Yes, Susan, I heard you," I replied, trying to stay composed. "This is serious, and I don't want to act impulsively. I've always been a loving husband and a dedicated father. You've never mentioned any issues with our intimacy. If our marriage is making you unhappy, I won't stand in the way of your happiness. It's painful, but I'll support your decision." "Is this something new, or has it been building for a while?" Susan's response was icy. "Yes, it's been building. I need space to explore new opportunities and meet new people. Legally, we need to be separated for 60 days after signing the papers. Who knows, I might change my mind and decide not to go through with the divorce." I took a moment to process her words. I knew that during the 60-day separation, we were free to date others without it being considered cheating, but both of us had to agree to stop the divorce. Susan seemed surprised by my knowledge, not realizing that I also had the freedom to file for divorce if I chose to. "That's not fair, Susan. I'll file for divorce too, so we're on equal footing. Does that sound reasonable?" Susan hesitated. I suppose. Are you saying you want a divorce too?" "I thought I was a good husband, father, and partner. I'm not asking for a divorce, but I won't block your future. You've been a great wife and mother, but wanting more shows I've fallen short." "Do you have a lawyer already?" "No, I haven't gotten the documents yet. I plan to ask Frank Walters. He handled all of Rachel's divorces," Susan said. "I'll probably ask my cousin Karen. I know you don't like her, but she's a tough, kind-hearted lawyer who fights hard for her clients. She even offered to represent me for free if I ever needed a divorce lawyer," I said. Susan looked taken aback. "Wow. So what now? Let's use the next 2 weeks to prepare. We'll start our separation at the beginning of next month." "Why do we need to prepare before the separation?" Susan asked, puzzled. "The separation is to see what life after divorce might be like and help us decide if it's what we really want," I explained. "It should be a trial period so we don't end up in a messy situation later. Does that make sense?" "I guess I hadn't thought about it that way," Susan admitted. "Let's grab a notepad and list everything we need to do. I'll make some coffee." As we sat in the kitchen, I started jotting down notes. "We need to talk about the kids first. We should explain what's happening to them, give them a consistent message, and reassure them it's not their fault. It's important we handle this together." Susan looked concerned. "Breaking the news to our daughters will be hard. Do we have to tell them right away?" "Yes, we need a plan for their questions about the separation," I said. "I think you should stay in the house during the separation to keep things normal for them. We can still spend time together sometimes." Susan was skeptical. "What about our social lives? What if one of us wants to go out and the other doesn't? It could lead to resentment." "We need to experience post-divorce life properly," I said. "We'll need to tell our extended family and friends too to avoid misunderstandings. Consistency in our message is crucial. Professional counseling might help, but I believe our daughters are strong enough to adapt." I tried to lighten the mood. "Who knows, they might gain more grandparents from our new partners, which means more gifts for special occasions. We'll have to coordinate events like birthdays and holidays carefully." Susan sighed but seemed resigned. "All right, let's start planning. And let's keep our new relationships discreet. If either of us starts seeing someone else, it's better to meet them elsewhere rather than bringing them home." We then discussed the financial implications of maintaining 2 separate households. I explained that our expenses would increase, and we need to divide our joint assets evenly, including closing joint accounts and setting up child support arrangements. Susan looked stunned. "There's so much to address before the first day of separation." I'll look into renting an apartment closer to my workplace so the girls will have a bed when they stay over," I said. "Typically, the non-resident parent sees the kids every weekend and every other major holiday unless we agree otherwise." Susan seemed surprised by my preparedness. "I thought you'd be dating more frequently." "I'll stay involved in their lives as much as possible," I assured her. "But you'll need to take on some of the responsibilities I currently handle. Weeknight visits might be tricky because of school commitments, and you might need to help your new partner's children with their activities, just as I would if I met someone." We discussed logistical challenges like managing belongings in 2 locations and transportation issues. Susan was frustrated by how the situation was unfolding. "Rachel assured me you would relent and maintain everything while allowing me to date others," Susan said, sounding defeated. "I'm losing control of the situation rapidly." I could see she was struggling. "I need to get some rest," she said, heading to bed. "Sorry, honey, but I need to jot down a few more things before I turn in. You know how my mind works. The more groundwork we lay now, the easier it will be." Susan barely slept that night. She needed to speak to Rachel and update her on my unexpected response. Rachel's assurance allowed her to eventually drift off. When she woke up, she noticed I wasn't in bed. "Oh my God, this fool stayed up all night working on the divorce checklist," she thought. But when she entered the kitchen, only a notepad lay on the table. I was sound asleep in the guest bedroom. As Susan made breakfast, she glanced at the notepad. Under the heading, "Liabilities to Change," I had listed tasks like adjusting the mortgage, homeowner's insurance, utilities, car payments, health insurance, and more. The next page detailed my anticipated expenses related to the apartment, and a projected budget indicating the amount of child support Susan would need to maintain her and the girls' current lifestyle, showing a shortfall of several $100s each month. I had also outlined strategies to cut costs. Susan noticed her own expenses listed too, including her gym membership and dining out. There was also a page with tasks she would need to handle, such as car maintenance and grocery shopping. Frustrated, Susan called Rachel. "Hello Rachel, it's Susan. We need to keep our voices down because Mark is sleeping nearby. How did it go last night?" Rachel sounded excited. "Did he finally agree to everything?" Susan relayed. "Mark agreed to the divorce and started listing all the tasks he'd handle that I'd have to take on. He intends to rent an apartment and only take care of the girls on weekends. He insists we separate and behave as if we're divorced to decide if we want to proceed after 60 days. He doesn't seem genuinely frightened by the divorce." "Listen, foolish girl," Rachel snapped. "He's trying to manipulate you. He's bluffing. It's all talk. You control the kids and what happens between your legs. Those are the things that will keep him in line. You and Brian will be enjoying each other soon, and you'll still have a husband and a home. I hope you're right and that Brian is worth the trouble. Well, Mark hasn't taken any action yet. I'll remain resolute until I see his next move," Susan said, ending the call. As I shuffled over to the coffee pot, Susan nervously offered coffee. "I mentioned that drinking coffee late at night isn't wise. I hardly slept last night." "Well, I went for a walk," I admitted. "I saw you sleeping undressed, and I was quite aroused. But I'm hesitant. If we made love now, it might be out of pity for my pain over the divorce proposal. I wasn't sure I could resist." Susan tried to reassure me. "We're still married. Can't we act like husband and wife until we separate?" "I'm convinced we need to start acting like we're separated immediately," I said. "Even though the official split starts at the beginning of the month, it began when you said you were unhappy. I want to see you happy, even if I no longer play a significant role in your life." Susan attempted to comfort me. "Our separation doesn't mean we have to pursue a divorce. Just give me some time to find myself. We might even strengthen our bond. I'll take the day off to handle our affairs," I said. "David will oversee the maintenance today. We need to sort out our finances and accounts as soon as possible." Later, at the office, Michael Hayes, a charming colleague, flirted with Susan. Although anxious, she agreed to discuss music together at a later time. Her thoughts shifted from our separation to memories of their moments together. When Susan returned home, she noticed signs that I had been there during the day, which brought her some relief. As she reviewed the notebook, she noticed a new list titled, "Possible Women to Date." Her sister Laura's name started. Susan immediately called Laura. "Hello, Laura. How dare you attempt to steal my husband?" Laura responded, confused. "Mark made a list of women who want to date him, and your name is on it. I once mentioned, after having a bit too much to drink, that if Mark left you, I'd be interested," Laura admitted. "But is there trouble in paradise?" Susan clarified. "We're just going through the 60-day separation. I haven't been involved with anyone yet." "All right," Laura said. "Notify me as soon as you're free from the marriage. I'll be pursuing Mark myself." Susan was frustrated and unsettled. She glanced at the list again and noticed names like Laura's and Lauren, Mark's younger secretary. The thought of him dating someone so young was unsettling. When I came home, I found Susan flipping through the notebook. "Looks like you wasted no time finding a replacement for me, huh?" "My own sister?" Susan retorted. "I was just catching up on your progress in finding a boyfriend." "What do you mean?" "I don't have a boyfriend. I just want to explore new relationships," she clarified. I heard about Michael Hayes," I said. "Michael Hayes? How do you know about him?" Susan asked, alarmed. "I bumped into Megan, your boss's secretary, at the supermarket," I explained. "She mentioned that you and Michael are close and that you have lunch together every day. But I found out Michael is married." Susan looked shocked. "I had no idea he was married. I would never break up a marriage." "It seems you're okay with breaking up our own marriage, though," I said bitterly. Susan was cornered and tried to deflect. "Well, he's just one of several men I might consider dating. I can make a list just like you," I interjected. "If we decide to stay married, we need to exchange medical reports to ensure we're both free of sexually transmitted diseases." Susan snapped. "It's just a precaution. I wasn't planning on dating anyone, but if I do, I'll find someone. You'll want to feel safe too. It's not just about you, it's about who you're with and their past," I said calmly. "Fine," Susan said, resigned. Susan's frustration boiled over as she muttered, "So what's next on your to-do list?" "I've got a lot on my plate," I replied, trying to stay focused. "First, I need to sort out our finances and accounts. The mortgage, utilities, and all of that. I also found a potential apartment closer to work. Lauren, my secretary, works as a night manager at the Royal Arms. They have a 2-bedroom unit available, and if I become their apartment maintenance specialist, I could get a 50% discount on rent. That means more money for you and the kids." You haven't signed the lease yet, have you?" Susan asked, trying to keep her voice steady. "No, I haven't finalized it," I said. "Lauren mentioned they usually don't do month-to-month rentals, but she might make an exception for 60 days since I told her about the situation. I was surprised by her interest in me, given the age gap. I politely declined her advances, citing workplace rules against personal relationships. She even suggested I find another job if that was the issue." Susan's face flushed with anger, but she kept quiet. I continued, "There's another piece of news you might appreciate. I booked 2 tickets for a 7-day Florida vacation. It was supposed to be a surprise for our 18th anniversary." Susan's eyes lit up. "Florida? Oh, Mark, you know how much I've always wanted to go there. This is amazing. I can't wait to relax on the beach and swim in the ocean." Thank you, thank you." I tried to keep my expression serious. "We won't be going to Florida together. When you mentioned divorce, I realized we might not make it to our 18th anniversary. I tried to cancel and get a refund, but it was too late. They only offered a 20% refund. Since the trip was more your dream than mine, I had them change the tickets for you and a guest." It could be a great start for your new relation. Susan's face fell. But Mark, I wanted to go to Florida with you. We could postpone the separation. In fact, I'm considering calling off the whole thing now that I've had time to reflect. I'm not as unhappy as I thought. I'm sorry, Susan, I said firmly. I've thought about this a lot. I don't believe I could be content knowing the possibility of divorce still hangs over us. Even if you retract the divorce now, you can't erase what you've said or the images in my mind of what you and Michael might have done. I'll likely proceed with the divorce regardless of your decision. I can't fathom life without you and being only a part-time father to my girls. With that, I retreated to the guest bedroom upstairs. Susan, feeling devastated, knew she had to turn to Rachel for support. She called her immediately. "Hello, Susan, what's wrong?" Rachel asked. "Everything has gone wrong. Mark found an apartment, and his secretary is already flirting with him. Even my sister wants to date him. The worst part is, he had tickets to Florida for our anniversary and gave them to me to use, but he won't go. He said I could use them to take my new boyfriend. What do I do now?" Rachel chuckled. "What's the problem? You and Michael can have a blast in the sun, fun adventures, and amazing lovemaking." Rachel, "No," Susan interrupted. "I found out Michael is married, and his wife and kids are moving here soon. I can't go to Florida with him. I want to go with Mark." Rachel's tone changed. "Hold on a second. I think I just realized what's going on. Wow, Mark is more cunning than I gave him credit for. He claims he booked the trip ages ago, but it was just a ploy to manipulate you into feeling guilty and stopping the divorce proceedings. Don't worry. With your looks and charm, you'll find boyfriends as good as, if not better than, Michael in no time, all while keeping your marriage and family intact." Susan felt a surge of anger. "Oh my goodness, I never imagined he could be so deceitful. He'll pay for this." "Thank you, Rachel. I was on the verge of giving up, but now I'm more determined than ever. He's going to regret this dearly. Let's chat later." When I came downstairs with a small suitcase, Susan glared at me. "So you're trying to make it look like you're already moving out? No worries, goodbye and good riddance." "Actually, I was just taking a few things to the apartment to avoid carrying too much at once and startling the girls," I explained. "Lauren mentioned I could move some stuff in before the first, since the apartment is empty anyway." Susan's attitude seemed different. "Let me guess, you were talking to your marriage guru Rachel again. She's quite the expert at divorce, isn't she? I have no doubt you'll have numerous offers once they realize you're available. I've always considered myself incredibly fortunate to have such a stunning woman like you, a fantastic partner in raising our children, and until recently, a faithful wife." "You're wrong about the Florida trip, and I can prove it," I said calmly. "Just give Helen Jones at Sunshine Travel Agency a call. I'll dial her now." I pulled out my phone and called Helen. "Hi Helen, it's Mark Wilson. My wife is on speakerphone, so you can fill her in on the details about the trip. She has a few questions." "Of course, Mark," Helen responded. "I'm really sorry you won't be able to go. It seems like you were genuinely looking forward to surprising your wife and enjoying your vacation," Susan demanded. "Could you please outline exactly what's included in this trip?" "Certainly," Helen said. "This is our 7-day excursion spanning 2 locations. It covers accommodations at our top-rated hotels, meals, transportation, hula lessons, luau dinners, traditional tiki performances, opportunities for surfing, swimming, and dancing, all set in a romantic atmosphere. Many couples have found it to be a transformative experience for their marriage." Susan asked. "When did my husband initially arrange this trip?" Helen paused. "According to our records, he inquired about it approximately 3 months ago, then finalized his selection for this specific trip 2 months ago, with payment made 2 weeks thereafter." Helen paused. "Yesterday, he contacted us to cancel the booking, resulting in a 20% refund. I was surprised when he suggested that you could still go and find another companion. That says a lot about the kind of husband he is. You're quite fortunate." Susan tried to process the information. Any other inquiries? No further questions, Helen said. I'll get back to you soon with the name. After the call ended, Susan struggled to anticipate Rachel's response. You think you've outsmarted me once more, don't you? You and Helen conspired to fabricate this Florida trip story before I even mentioned divorce. Well, I've caught on, she said, feeling a twisted sense of pride in her deduction. I sighed. You should talk to your parents. What do my parents have to do with this? Susan snapped. Who do you think will look after the girls while we're away? I asked. Fine, let's call them, Susan said, caught off guard. No need to rush into it, dear. I'm already dialing, I stated. Susan hesitated. Mark, wait. Her mother answered the call. Susan, how are the girls? Glad you called. Hi, Mark, her mother said. Hi, Mom, Susan greeted hesitantly. Mom, this is Mark. We're on speakerphone, so hold on, let me get Dad too. Her father's voice joined in. Frank, it's Mark and Susan. Pick up, honey. Guys, what's going on? Frank asked. Susan remained silent, so I spoke up. Susan knows now, so no need to keep it a secret. We're sorry I can't go, but I didn't mention why when I called earlier. I hope it's not health-related. When you called this morning and said we wouldn't babysit the girls for your Florida trip, we were disappointed. We were looking forward to having them with us for 7 days and felt bad for Susan that you couldn't go with her. We know how much she wants to go, but she'd rather go with you than anyone else. Have you decided who to... Susan's father added. It'll be tough for whoever stays. No, I haven't decided yet, Susan said. How long ago did Mark discuss the Florida trip with you? She asked, sensing a trap. I'm not sure, Frank said. Do you remember, dear? It was around New Year's, wasn't it? Her mother replied. Almost sure. 2 or 3 months ago. He mentioned it early so we could stock up on snacks. These two can eat anything and never gain weight. Her mother Mark, Susan's mother interjected, concerned. Is everything okay with Susan? Why are you asking when Mark talked to us? Did something happen between you two? Oh God, did you break up? No, Mom, not exactly. We decided we needed some space, some time apart to recharge our marriage and maybe reconcile. Susan clarified. Dear, I'm not going to lie to your parents, I interjected. They've always been honest with me. Susan, I didn't mean to cause alarm. What I meant was that the first step in the divorce process is a 60-day separation. I hope this time will help me find myself, explore new opportunities, and better myself so I can be a better wife and mother. Frank's voice boomed. Susan, do you have a boyfriend on the side? No, Dad, not at all, Susan denied, her voice shaking. I thought about stepping in but decided against it. Frank continued. I can't believe you could do something like this. We raised you better. I'm so disappointed. Don't expect us to welcome your new man with open arms. Susan, we're so sorry, Mark. At least promise us you'll let us see our grandchildren after the divorce. Susan's tears intensified as she interrupted. Mark has blown this whole thing out of proportion. I take my words back. No divorce, no separation. I'll talk to you later when everything calms down. Seeing Susan in such distress, I said, you need to pull yourself together. The girls will be home soon. I grabbed my suitcase and headed toward the door. Where are you going? Susan asked, her voice trembling. Didn't you hear? I don't want to divorce you. You don't have to go anywhere. I'm sorry, Susan. You decided on divorce without consulting me. Now you think you can change it all back just because things aren't going your way? You don't seem to understand that I have a voice in this too. After what I've learned about you over the past week, I'm not sure giving up on the divorce is a good idea. I'll stay in the apartment tonight, I said. I want you to write down a few things. Your words and actions have hurt me deeply. If your responses meet my expectations, I'll consider calling off or at least delaying the divorce. I'll return by 7 o'clock. Maybe send the kids to your parents or friends so we can speak freely. Yes, yes. Thank you. What should I write? Susan asked eagerly. First, I expect an apology for starting this whole situation. Not just an apology, but beg for my forgiveness. Second, instruct Michael to stop contacting you. If he doesn't comply, warn him that I can take legal action against him and your company. Third, list all the reasons why I should consider staying married to you. Finally, call Rachel and tell her you never want to speak to her again. Finally, this is non-negotiable. If I ever hear about Rachel's input again, I will leave immediately. Do you understand? Yes, dear. I understand. I'll do everything and be ready by 7 o'clock. Good. See you at 7 o'clock, I said, leaving with my suitcase. Good. Susan focused on the final task, mentally rehearsing her words to Rachel. She dialed Rachel and said, "Listening to you was my worst mistake. Because of you, I nearly lost everything dear to me. Do not contact me via call, text, email, or even think of me. If our paths cross in public, steer clear or I won't be responsible for my actions." Feeling a surprising sense of relief after confronting Rachel, Susan called Michael and relayed my instructions. She recounted his desperate plea to meet one last time, but she shut him down, resorting to insults and accusations of inadequacy. She warned him that she would involve his wife if he continued causing trouble. Feeling a surprising sense of relief to her surprise, listing reasons why I should stay married turned out to be the easiest task. Liberated from desiring more than what she had with me, Susan reflected on the joys we shared and compiled an entire list, hopeful that it would impress me. She expressed remorse for the divorce ruse, acknowledging how foolish and self-centered she had been. As 7 o'clock approached, Susan felt prepared and hopeful. But when the hour struck and I hadn't returned, worry crept in. 5 minutes later, I reappeared without my luggage. My expression remained unchanged. Susan tried to remain composed as she handed me her responses. "Here are my answers. I hope you reconsider." I read through the list, tears welling up in my eyes. Seeing me cry, Susan began to weep too, thinking this might be a hopeful sign. "Susan, this is really impressive," I said, my voice shaking. "Your effort is commendable, but I'm not sure you understand the extent of the pain you've caused me. I fear I must proceed with the divorce." Susan was devastated. It felt as if her heart had been shattered. She collapsed to the floor, sobbing uncontrollably. "I've ruined my family's life. I'm the worst person alive. I don't deserve to live. How could I have been so foolish?" she wailed. I knelt beside her, whispering, "Now you understand how I felt." As Susan continued to cry, I approached the door but paused, glancing back at her. "During our separation, are we allowed to see other people?" Through her tears, Susan struggled to speak. "If dating others is permitted, what are your plans for Friday night? Would you like to have dinner and catch a movie? You're asking me out on a date?" Susan exclaimed, wiping her tears. "Yes," I said. "I believe our old relationship has changed, but perhaps we can start anew." Susan rushed toward me, her face brightening. "Yes, yes, 1,000 times yes," she cried.